Horror movies always try to twist and spin a story to ensure that their beloved genre icons survive or get resurrected in time for the sequel. Short of seeing a body actually disintegrate into dust, you can never really be sure that anyone's dead, and even if you think they are, there's a good chance they'll come back in time for the end of the film. So I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are the 10 best back from the dead moments in horror movies. 10. Jack comes back deader than ever. An American Werewolf in London. John Landis's 1981 horror comedy follows two American backpackers who very quickly regret their decision to go traipsing across the English moors. One night, a vicious beast attacks the duo, leaving David injured and Jack dead. Well, undead. The beast, which is discovered to be a werewolf, has not only mauled Jack to death, but has left him cursed. Whilst in the hospital recovering from his injury, David receives a visit from his newly undead mate, who reveals to him that he's now a werewolf. It's a double shocker. First you find out your friend is actually sort of alive, and next you find out he's a supernatural monster. An American Werewolf in London has plenty of tongue-in-cheek humour running throughout. This almost unexpected reappearance of Jack in such a subtle manner is particularly effective. Not only does it serve to surprise viewers, but also offers them a good indication of how the tone for the rest of the movie will likely play out. 9. Billy Zane's back for more. Dead Calm. Psychological horror Dead Calm washed up on shores back in 1989. The Australian thriller teamed up Nicole Kidman and Sam Neill as grieving couple John and Ray, vacationing out in the Pacific on their private yacht. The couple is soon joined by an erratic third party, Huey, who has escaped from a nearby sinking ship where all his friends on board have apparently died from food poisoning. When John rows to the abandoned ship, he discovers that their new shipmate has murdered his companions instead. Huey kidnaps Ray and escapes across the open sea in the yacht, and after much battling and manipulation between the pair, Ray eventually gets the better of Huey, harpooning him and leaving him for dead to float away. A few days later, the newly reunited couple discover the Huey-less raft drifting in the sea. Of course, when it comes to horror tropes, you should never let your guard down. Viewers are given the full horror of what's about to occur as, unbeknownst to Ray, the evil Huey is back from the dead, dragging his blood-stained fingers across her hair as she relaxes on the deck of the yacht. The moment is almost completely silent, with just the sound of the ocean waves lapping in the background, and that is what makes it particularly spine-chilling. 8. Classic haunted house shenanigans. House on Haunted Hill, 1999. The House on Haunted Hill remake was the first horror effort from the new production company Dark Castle Entertainment, formed back in 1999. It featured plenty of memorable moments and, in particular, an incredibly camp and over-the-top performance from Oscar-winning Australian actor Geoffrey Rush. Rush plays Stephen Price, an amusement park legend and master trickster. He plans a special private birthday party for his ex-wife involving a spooky abandoned psychiatric house and the promise of a $1 million payout to whoever survives the night. This is a very weird thing to do and should have been a huge red flag from the start, so I have little sympathy for anyone who participated. The house has been rigged with plenty of tricks to help scare the guests into leaving, but the true horror is the horrific history and hauntings now occurring within the house. After a string of incidents inside the house, Stephen Price gets shot by one of the guests and slumps to the ground. Later, when his devious ex-wife discovers his body and gloats about his death, Price leaps to his feet, attacking her. How, everyone wonders? Well, in his own words, "You must be kidding me. I'm Stephen Goddamn Price." With this, he reaffirms his status as the master of trickery and proves that we never really should have believed he was dead in the first place. 7. Freddy's Not Done With You. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Iconic horror movie villains are always able to cheat death in the most elaborate of ways, but it's much more believable when that character is already supernatural. Freddy Krueger, star of A Nightmare on Elm Street, first appeared in 1984, and subsequently managed to survive, to some extent, through 7 more movies over the years. The most shocking moment that found Freddy returning from the dead, despite already being dead, was at the climax of the original A Nightmare on Elm Street. Here, Krueger smothers Nancy's mother on her bed in a fiery attempt to take her to hell. After the fire is put out, the bodies disappear, but Freddy once more emerges from beneath the sheets, only for Nancy to relinquish her fear of Freddy and force him to fade away once and for all. As Nancy leaves the room, it cuts to a rather jarring and odd final sequence that's often been criticised by horror fans. Nancy steps outside of the house on a bright morning along with her mother and joins her friends, said friends having previously been slaughtered by Freddy. Baffled by her surroundings, Nancy reluctantly gets into a car with her friends, which then locks itself, trapping them all inside. Nancy screams for help as Freddy's arm smashes through the glass window pane on the door, grabbing her mother and dragging her her violently through the window. People tend to not like this scene because it's a bit ridiculous, it's really badly executed, and we thought he was already dead. But then again, when you're a supernatural being that haunts people's dreams, how dead or alive can you ever really be? 6. He likes to watch Saw. John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, is one of the best villains in horror movie history, no doubt. Unlike many other on-screen serial killers, he manages to set his victims up without needing to lay a finger on them. The twisted games he masterminds allow for him to create scenarios in which his victims make their own decisions and face their own consequences. In the first flick, two strangers wake up in a rundown bathroom, each tethered by the leg and chained to a pipe. They're not alone though, as a third victim lays in a pool of blood in the middle of the room, holding a gun and a tape recorder. As the story unravels and the two try to discover why they're there, they uncover various clues to realise they're playing one of these twisted games created by Jigsaw. Just when you think you know which way things are going, the rug is truly pulled out from under your feet. Suddenly, the apparently dead stranger in the middle of the room gets to his feet, revealing the fact that he's the game's creator, booking himself a front row seat to all the gory action. It's now a completely legendary scene because it's not too often that whilst watching a horror movie, you then realise at the end that the twist has been right in front of your eyes the whole time, just waiting for it to reveal itself. 5. The truth is not what it seems. The Lie. The Lie was the premiere installment in the horror anthology series Welcome to Blumhouse, a series of 4 Blumhouse-produced movies that made their debut on Amazon Prime Video. As the title would infer, certain truths are being withheld in this movie, only to be revealed at its dramatic climax. Kayla, played by Joey King, falls out with her friend Brittany, and during a pit stop, the two head into the snow-covered woods and don't return following an argument. Jay, her father, heads after the pair to discover that Kayla has pushed her friend into the river. So, as any good horror movie parent would do, the father and the mother help Kayla cover up her dirty little secret. They even manage to keep it hidden from Brittany's suspicious father, who Kayla's mum ends up killing when he snoops a little bit too close to the truth. It's during this frantic cleanup that Brittany walks in, back from the dead. Incredibly, the lie this entire time has not been quite as dark as we thought. Instead, Kayla was simply covering for her friend who wanted to spend a little time disappearing with her boyfriend. Her return is so jarring because it's so unexpected and laid back, and also by now the whole thing has gone way too far for this to just get brushed under the rug. 4. Jason emerges from the depths. Friday the 13th, 1980. Wearing his iconic hockey mask, Jason Voorhees is arguably the most recognisable horror villain of all time. Incredibly, it wasn't actually until Friday the 13th Part 3 was released that Jason first got his hands on a hockey mask to help hide his facial disfigurements. And these facial disfigurements were shockingly revealed to audiences during the calming final moments of the original Friday the 13th movie. What makes this moment so unique is that Jason Voorhees was never actually seen in the entire movie up until this point. Right up until the end, it's assumed that it's a deranged Jason that's been wandering around at night picking off camp counselors. So when it's revealed that it was in fact his mother, Mrs. Voorhees, who'd been doing the killing, audiences thought that the Jason backstory was just a red herring. At the close of the movie, after offing Mrs. Voorhees though, the exhausted Alice escapes onto the lake in a canoe. But later when she wakes, a horrific looking Jason leaps from the water to grab her. Alice wakes again in the hospital where she's informed that no little boy has been found, but having seen it with our own eyes, we know the truth. 3. One Ghost Too Many. 13 Ghosts, 2001. The 2001 remake of supernatural chiller 13 Ghosts was the second horror outing for the newly founded horror studio Dark Castle. It features Arthur, a family man who lost his wife in a fire several years before. He inherits a unique shape-shifting house from his recently deceased ghost-hunting uncle Cyrus, and goes to check it out only to discover that the house is imprisoning 12 very angry ghosts inside, which unexpectedly get released when the family arrives. However, it appears that all is not what it seems when Arthur's late uncle himself appears in the house. First assumed to be a ghost himself, he's very much alive, as it's revealed that he faked his death to lure Arthur to the house to sacrifice him to become the 13th ghost. A daft twist like this was the bread and butter of the early Dark Castle produced movies, following in the footsteps of the likes of Ghost Ship, Gothica and House of Wax. 2. Frank is back. The Frighteners. Director Peter Jackson has always been a dab hand when it comes to comedy horror, and this is perfectly exemplified in this wonderful picture starring Michael J. Fox. After an accident that resulted in the death of his wife, Frank, played by Fox, now sees ghosts. He befriends a group of them and works with them to scare residents so that he can stroll in and pretend to exorcise them and cleanse houses. When a Grim Reaper-like entity appears in the town, Frank works with his deceased pals to uncover the motives of this mysterious figure. It's revealed to be a dead serial killer, Johnny Bartlett, who, along with his ex-lover, Patricia, kills Frank. However, as his spirit leaves his body, he drags Pat's spirit from her, in an effort to lure Bartlett away. The pair get ensnared and head to hell while Frank makes it to heaven, but he's soon given another chance as his ex-wife awaits him and sends him to live the rest of his life back on Earth. This is definitely one of the more feel-good entries on this list. As you've spent the whole film rooting for Frank, it's good to see finally something nice happen to him. 1. Back from the Dead, The Lazarus Effect. Although often hailed as a weak pastiche of 80s classic horror, the 2015 supernatural thriller The Lazarus Effect certainly has a top concept that fits very nicely into this list. The Lazarus Effect follows a couple of medical researchers who unwittingly discover a special serum that brings dead people back to life. The couple and their friends attempt to revive a dead dog. They successfully bring the dog back to life, but soon notice that it's undergone some noticeable changes, including gaining some peculiar abilities. It's discovered that the serum isn't only reviving these patients, but also adding new synapses to their brain, essentially giving them psychic abilities. After a horrific accident in the lab, Zoe dies and Frank decides to bring her back with the serum. Over time, the newly resurrected Zoe begins acting strangely as her brain evolves. Really, her revival moment is one that has audiences screaming at the screen asking why. But the thing is that even knowing the potential consequences of doing this couldn't compare to Frank's grief. Inevitably, Zoe ends up gaining enhanced powers such as telepathy and telekinesis. But unfortunately, she also gets increased rage and anger that lead her to kill anyone in her way. I like to think that I'm a little too smart to make that same mistake, but hey, if I was in his position, who knows? And on that note, we've reached the end of this list of the 10 best back from the dead moments in horror movies. If you've got any more that you would have included on this list, then let us know in the comments down below. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. As always, I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.